Good morning, I'm Sarah Sapsanamma. Let's begin with the top stories of the hour. Government decides to end the winter session of Parliament. Bills for implementation of federalism overshadowed throughout the session by ordinance fiasco. Prime Minister Oli to leave for Thailand today to participate in BIMSTEC summit. Experts suggest prioritizing agendas like trade, climate change and regional security. Israeli forces kill at least 34 Palestinians on the second day of Eid al-Fitr. Thousands flee Rafah after Israeli forces order evacuation of nearly the entire city. And Mumbai Indians secure an 8-wicket victory over Kolkata Knight Riders in Indian Premier League. Lucknow Super Giants to lock horns with Punjab Super Kings later this evening. The government has decided to end the ongoing winter session of Parliament. In a meeting held at the Prime Minister's residence in Balwatar last night, the Cabinet decided to recommend to President Ramchandra Podal that the session be concluded from midnight tonight.
संघीय संसदको प्रतिनिधि सभा र राष्ट्रिय सभाको चालु अधिवेशन चैत्र 19 गते मंगलबार राति 12 बजेदेखि अन्त्य गर्न सम्माननीय राष्ट्रपतिज्यू समक्ष सिफारिस गर्ने पनि निर्णय भएको छ र भोलि नै बिमस्टेकको सम्मेलनमा भाग लिन प्रधानमन्त्रीज्यू थाइल्यान्डमा जाँदै हुनुहुन्छ र थाइल्यान्डमा चाहिँ थाइल्यान्ड सरकारको औपचारिक निमन्त्रणा र बिमस्टेकको चाहिँ सम्मेलनमा सहभागी अतिरिक्त थाइल्यान्डमा रहनु हुँदाखेरि एसियन इन्स्टिट्युट अफ टेक्नोलोजीमा चाहिँ प्रधानमन्त्रीज्यूले सम्बोधन गर्ने कार्यक्रम छ र एसियन इन्स्टिट्युट टेक्नोलोजीको हामी संस्थापक सदस्य पनि रहेछ र नेपाल अहिले त्यो बोर्ड अफ ट्रस्टीको सदस्य पनि भएको नाताले र एआईटी अहिले चाहिँ एकदमै आर्थिक सङ्कटमा पनि भएको कारणले गर्दाखेरि नेपाल सरकारको तर्फबाट एआईटीलाई $1 लाख अनुदान सहयोग गर्ने निर्णय पनि भएको छ।
The Cabinet has also decided to deploy a team from Nepal Army to Myanmar following a devastating earthquake last Friday. The disaster has caused massive loss of life and property, with more than 2,500 people reported dead and a similar number missing. Nepal Army team, which will include medical personnel, will assist in rescue, relief and medical treatment efforts. The government has also decided to send medicines and relief materials to Myanmar via Nepal Airlines. The Cabinet has also approved a financial aid of $100,000 to Asian Institute of Technology in Thailand. Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli is scheduled to travel to Bangkok later today to attend the BIMSTEC summit. During his stay, he will deliver a speech at the Asian Institute of Technology. The government has decided to conclude the ongoing winter session of the Parliament, which began on January 31st, 2024. The session, which lasted for 2 months, was primarily meant for legislative purposes, but was marred by controversies from the start, particularly concerning ordinances. The session was expected to focus on lawmaking, yet the number of bills passed remained lower than anticipated. The government managed to pass 10 bills, including 5 ordinance replacement bills, but failed to advance crucial federal laws. The school education bill, which has been under discussion for a year and a half in the Education, Health and Information Technology Committee, remains stalled. Teachers across the country continue to demand its swift enactment, but disagreements within the committee led to the formation of a subcommittee. However, no clear timeline has been set for a consensus. The Federal Civil Service Bill was finally submitted to the State Affairs Committee after long negotiations within a subcommittee. Meanwhile, the government had planned to pass the Nepal Police and Armed Police bills, but they were only recently registered in the Parliament and sent for discussion. The Commission for the Investigation of Abuse of Authority bill, which was approved by a subcommittee, has remained stuck due to political disagreements. Constitutional Council bill, which was submitted to the Speaker during the previous session, was only passed in the lower house on Monday, 10 months later.
यो आईएलओ प्रोटोकल तथा सिफारिस सम्बन्धी प्रतिवेदन एउटा पेश भएको छ भने अर्को मोन्ट्रियल प्रोटोकल किगाली संशोधन पनि सदनले चाहिँ पारित गरेको अवस्था छ। त्यसै गरेर दुईटा चाहिँ जरुरी सार्वजनिक महत्त्वको प्रस्ताव चाहिँ योचोटिको प्रतिनिधि सभातर्फ चाहिँ छलफल भएको छ।
Currently, 11 bills are under review in parliamentary committees. In an attempt to expedite their passage, the government formed a task force led by Nepali Congress lawmaker Jiwan Pariyar and CPN-UML lawmaker Yogesh Bhattarai, but the effort proved ineffective. Parliamentary committees failed to hold sufficient meetings to progress the bills. Opposition parties obstructed proceedings after the government introduced an ordinance just a week before the session began. Due to a lack of support from coalition partners, the government struggled to get the ordinance approved on time, further delaying discussions on other bills. Out of 6 ordinances, the government dropped the land ordinance, eventually passing 5 replacement ordinances. The session became more chaotic when the opposition strongly opposed the government's decision to remove Kulman Khising from Nepal Electricity Authority, leading to further disruptions. Despite these challenges, the ruling coalition considers the session successful, whereas the opposition blames the government for failing to pass necessary laws.
2 महिनाको बेलामा समयमा पटक प्रमुख प्रतिपक्षी लगायत प्रतिपक्षीहरूले सदन अवरुद्ध गरिरहेको अवस्था, यसका बावजुद पनि यति महत्त्वपूर्ण विधेयक यो संख्यामा पारित गर्ने कुरा लाई हामीले यसलाई उपलब्धिको रूपमा लिएका छौं। अझै केही महत्त्वपूर्ण विधेयकहरू शिक्षासँग सम्बन्धित, निजामतीसँग सम्बन्धित विधेयकहरूलाई हामी निष्कर्षमा पुर्याउन सकिन्छ कि भन्ने त्यो हाम्रो अपेक्षा थियो। तर हामी ठ्याक्कै यो हाउस बन्द गरेर बजेट अधिवेशन पनि आह्वान गर्न पर्ने त्यो चापमा पनि छ।
अझै पनि हामी जनताप्रति चाहिँ मान्य सदस्यहरू जति जिम्मेवार हुनुपर्ने हो त्यो चाहिँ पुगिरहेको देखिँदैन। त्यो सत्ता पक्षबाटै कमजोर भएको म देख्छु। फेरि किन भनेर भन्दा समितिहरूको बैठकहरू चाहिँ एकदम रेगुलर जाने कुरा, अनि त्यसपछि त्यहाँ मन्त्रीहरूको उपस्थिति हुने कुरा, अनि त्यसपछि उहाँहरूको तदारुकता देखाउने विषयवस्तुमा चाहिँ अझै पछाडी परिरहेको नै मलाई चाहिँ अनुभूति हुन्छ।
The winter session, which lasted for almost 2 months, failed to be as effective as the government had envisioned. Despite initial promises of productivity, the session was marked by political disputes, procedural delays, and legislative shortcomings. 41 individuals were arrested on charges of involvement in violent protests led by pro-monarchy protesters on Friday. The court has granted permission to keep them in custody for additional 5 days for investigation. Authorities are continuing to search for those involved in vandalism, arson and looting. However, Durga Prasai, the main suspect behind the violence and the commander of the protest, remains on the run. Prasai was initially detained by the police after attempting to drive a vehicle over security personnel, but the question remains who ordered his release. The Ministry of Home Affairs has not yet clarified how Prasai managed to escape.
On 28 March, monarchy supporters who had received permission for a peaceful program in Tinkune in Kathmandu were involved not only in vandalism and arson, but also in an incident that resulted in the death of a journalist. As the protesters caused destruction and looted private homes, arrests of those involved are ongoing. Among those arrested are leaders from Rashtriya Prajatantra Party (RPP), including Ravindra Mishra and Dhawal Samsher Rana, totaling 41 individuals in police custody as of March 31st. However, the most sought-after figure remains Durga Prasai, the main instigator of the violence. Prasai, who attempted to run over security personnel with a vehicle, was initially detained by the police but managed to escape. The question of how this happened requires some background and a review of 2 videos. By noon on Friday, the number of participants in the event was increasing. Protesters attempting to break through the security cordon and move towards the Parliament building in Baneshwar were being blocked by security personnel. The police had repeatedly urged the protesters to hold their program at designated location, but when the formal event was about to begin around 2 p.m., a vehicle carrying Durga Prasai approached the security barrier and attempted to run over the security personnel. The vehicle stopped at Tinkune Bridge, and it was there that the police took Prasai into custody at 2 minutes past 2 p.m. The police visibly apprehended him, holding him by the arm. Following this, the protesters began breaking through the security barrier and the situation escalated, leading to the use of force by the police. The question that lingers is how did Durga Prasai manage to escape from police custody? During the operation, a team from Nepal Police and armed police force under the command of the SP was deployed in Tinkune area. Security activities were being monitored by a command post, including the chief district officer. Those who had been monitoring Prasai's actions had ordered the use of tear gas and aerial firing, but no orders were given to detain Prasai. Was there someone else who ordered his release? It's a key issue for investigation. Although Prasai was under police control, he managed to escape, raising suspicions. Officers later claimed that the escape occurred due to some external pressure or order, but the Ministry of Home Affairs is reviewing the matter. The following day, on Saturday, Home Minister Ramesh Lekar claimed that Prasai would be captured, but despite the efforts of the police, Prasai continued to taunt security forces by posting videos on social media. Question remains, who gave the order to release him? Police officers involved in the search for Prasai state he will face serious charges, including crimes against the state, organized crime and murder, and his escape will not be easy. Once charges are filed in the court, an Interpol red notice could be issued to bring him back. The Ministry of Home Affairs, despite earlier reports advising against allowing royalists to gather in Tinkune, had approved the gathering due to political considerations, including pressure from RPP. Security agencies were aware of the risks that Prasai posed, but failed to prevent the violence and destruction. The ministry's analysis of the situation is being reviewed, as it seems they were unable to predict the full extent of the violence that unfolded.
It is time now for our segment Public Pulse, where you text us with your opinion. The question is, what do you think of the Prime Minister's comment on the removal of Kulman Kissing from Nepal Electricity Authority? Your options are A, an unlawful statement, B, a strategy to control employees, and C, natural response. The voting is on. Type NEWS, select your option A, B or C and send it to 34001 to share your opinion with us. Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli is travelling to Bangkok, Thailand later today to participate in the BIMSTEC summit. Preparations for the Prime Minister's visit has been completed, and at the summit, Nepal is preparing to prioritize topics such as commerce and trade, security and climate change.
Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli is travelling to Bangkok, Thailand on Tuesday to participate in the BIMSTEC summit. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs has stated the BIMSTEC summit will primarily focus on 7 key topics. These include discussions on commerce and trade, the impact of climate change, and mutual relations among the citizens of the BIMSTEC member countries. Experts have emphasized that Nepal should prioritize trade and energy development. It is suggested that landlocked member countries should focus on transportation and communication, energy, and digital connectivity.
म यहाँ कनेक्टिभिटीको कुरा गर्दाखेरि म तीनटै कनेक्टिभिटी चाहिँ हामी चाहिँ अगाडि चाहिँ बढ्नुपर्छ। अब एउटा हामीहरूको ट्रान्सपोर्ट कनेक्टिभिटी, दोस्रो इनर्जी कनेक्टिभिटी, तेस्रो हाम्रो डिजिटल कनेक्टिभिटी। अब यो कन्टेक्स्टमा हामीहरूको एउटा मास्टर प्लानै हामी ट्रान्सपोर्टको लागि चाहिँ मास्टर प्लान बिमस्टेकले ट्रान्सपोर्टको लागि मास्टर प्लानै गरेको छ भनेदेखि बने तयार भइसकेको छ। त्यसको इम्प्लिमेन्टेसनमा नि प्रोजेक्टहरु समेत आइडेन्टिफाई गरेर त्यो मास्टर प्लान बनाएको छ भनेदेखि अब त्यसको इम्प्लिमेन्टेसनमा चाहिँ अब हामी फोकस गर्नुपर्ने चाहिँ हुन्छ।
Nearly 75% of Nepal's total foreign trade happens with BIMSTEC countries. Nepal is currently facing an annual foreign trade deficit of more than 1.5 trillion rupees. However, improvements in exports have not been achieved. There is a challenge in arranging easy exports of Nepali products. Stakeholders emphasize that BIMSTEC could be a platform to address these existing issues.
Particularly, हामीहरुको रुल्स अफ ओरिजिनको लागि के चाहिँ हुने अथवा स्ट्यान्डर्डलाई हामी कसरी हार्मोनाइज गर्ने अथवा रेगुलेटरी मतलब जुन सिस्टम छ नि ट्रेडको रेगुलेटरी अब त्यसमा चाहिँ हामी कसरी चाहिँ त्यसलाई सिम्प्लिफाई गर्नेमा अन्डरस्ट्यान्ड गर्ने त्यो एउटा चाहिँ अर्को ट्रेडसँग रिलेटेड हामीहरुको नन ट्यारिफ मेजरमा चाहिँ छ।
अब बिजुलीको कुरा अब हामीले इन्डिया र बंगलादेशसँग त एमओयू साइन गरिसकेका छ। अब अहिले तपाईको सिल्क रोड थाइल्यान्ड यो के अरे एसियन कन्ट्री र सार्क रिजनमा जोडेको अवस्था छ। अब सिल्क रोड भने जस्तै एउटा रोडको हाइवे भने जस्तै बिजुलीको हाइवे पनि एसियन कन्ट्री साउथ एसियन चाइनासम्म जोड्ने यो पहिलेदेखि स्थापित एजेन्डा हो हैन। त्यसको पनि कुरा नेपालको तर्फबाट राख्ने कुरा मैले बुझिएको छु हैन।
Preparations are also underway for a sideline meeting between Prime Minister Oli and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi during the BIMSTEC summit. Prime Minister Oli will also have sideline meetings with other heads of state. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs has stated the summit will formulate solid strategies for the common interests of the member nations. In addition to the summit, Prime Minister Oli will also take an official visit to Thailand. During this visit, agreements between the two countries are expected. The government has announced that there will be various agreements between the private sectors of Nepal and Thai businesses. Discussions will also be held regarding direct foreign investment in Nepal, as stated by the Nepal Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Agreements related to cultural exchange and tourism are also in the pipeline.
सामान्य प्रधानमन्त्रीज्यू गएको सन्दर्भमा हामीले चाहिँ दुईटा एमओयू यो संस्कृति आदान प्रदान नेपाल र थाइल्यान्ड बीचको सांस्कृतिक क्षेत्रमा सहयोग आदान प्रदान गर्नेसँग सम्बन्धित एमओयू र पर्यटन प्रवर्धन गर्नेसँग सम्बन्धित एमओयूलाई चाहिँ यो प्रोटोकल मिलाएर हस्ताक्षर गर्ने गरी तयारी पनि गरिएको छ.
Nepal and Thailand have maintained a friendly relationship for a long time. However, this will be the first time a Nepali Prime Minister is making an official visit to Thailand. This visit is expected to derive maximum benefit from both the BIMSTEC summit and Nepal's relations with Thailand.
Now, consumer rights are considered a fundamental right in Nepal's constitution. However, despite the constitution being enacted 9 years ago, consumers have not been able to exercise their rights. The Consumer Protection Act 2075 mandates that goods and services must have a maximum retail price MRP. However, most goods available in the market do not display MRP. In some cases, consumers are being forced to pay more than the stipulated price. To address this issue, the Department of Commerce, Supplies and Consumer Protection has made MRP provision mandatory.
6 years after the enactment of the Consumer Protection Act, the provision to set a maximum retail price MRP on goods and services has been implemented. The department responsible for enforcing the law, the Department of Commerce, Supplies and Consumer Protection, introduced this system starting Monday, March 31st. However, business owners argue that it is impossible to set prices for imported items.
नेपालको परिप्रेक्ष्यलाई हेर्ने हो भने अधिकांश वस्तुहरू आयातबाट नेपालमा व्यवसाय हुने गर्दछ, उत्पादन कम छ. त्यो परिवेशलाई हेर्दाखेरि आयातित वस्तुमा पूर्ण रूपले नै मूल्य सूची राख्नलाई त्यति सम्भावना छैन, हैन. जुन सम्भावनाहरू छ त्यो चीजहरू हामीले ग्रहण गर्दै नै अगाडि बढेको अवस्था हो. तर अब एक हप्ताको समय सीमा दिएर तपाईको चाहिँ लागू गर्छु अन्यथा म कारबाही गर्छु यो गर्छु भन्नु चाहिँ तपाईको अराजकता हो कि भन्ने हामीले महसुस गर्छौं.
Consumers have often reported of being cheated due to lack of MRP on most goods in the market. With the new mandatory MRP system on all goods, the department claims that consumer fraud will be reduced. Consumer rights activists suggest that the department should make monitoring more effective to implement this decision.
तोक्नु र घोषणा गर्नु मात्रै ठोक कुरा हैन, सार्थक र प्रभावकारी कार्यान्वयन गर्नको निमित्त वाणिज्य आपूर्ति तथा उपभोक्ता संरक्षण विभाग, मातहतका कार्यालयहरू, सबै जिल्ला प्रशासन कार्यालयहरू, स्थानीय सरकारहरूलाई समेत अधिकार प्रत्यार्जन गराएर वास्तवमै एमआरपी लेखिएको भन्दा बढी मूल्य तपाईले भन्नुभएको चाहिँ राजमार्गका होटलहरू जस्तो एयरपोर्ट लगायत ठाउँहरूमा लेखिएको हुन्छ एउटा एमआरपी तर मूल्य 3 गुणा बढी लिएको अवस्था हुन्छ. विभिन्न देशबाट आयात गरेका वस्तुहरू चाहे इन्डियाबाट होस् चाहे तेस्रो मुलुकबाट आयात गरेका वस्तुहरूमा पनि त्यसको मूल्य भन्दा बढी त्यहाँ लेखिएको हुन्छ एमआरपीबाट तर डबल तेबर मूल्य लिने काम गरेको हुन्छ भनेपछि भोलिका दिनमा नियमनको चुनौती थपिन्छ.
At present, only a few items like food products, noodles, beverages and medicines display MRP. However, items like construction materials, vehicles, electrical goods, clothing, watches, cosmetics, shoes and slippers do not have any price mentioned. Consumers still complain of having to pay more than the listed price even for the items that do have an MRP.
बडी जसो मान्छेले ट्राभल गर्दा फुड बोकेको हुँदैन हैन सर, पानी बोकेको हुन्छ तर फुड बोकेको हुँदैन हैन. अनि त्यो ठाउँमा जुन हुन्छ नि सर जुन फेयर पैसा छ त्यो भन्दा जति अब प्रॉफिट उनीहरुले चाहन्छ हैन खान त खान्छ उनीहरुले हैन अनि त्यो भन्दा बढी प्रॉफिट मलाई चाहियो त्यो गरेर हैन सर उनीहरुले पैसा बढी कमाउन चाहन्छ एमआरपी हैन सर एमआरपी भन्दा नि बढी पैसा लिन्छन्.
यस्तो किन लिइरहेछ किनभने त्यो चाहिँ धेरै अनडेभलप्ड भयो नि, अनडेभलप्ड क्षेत्र भयो, त्यहाँ ट्रान्सपोर्टेसन चार्जहरु जोडेर ल्याउन अलि गाह्रो हुन्छ, सबै कुरा जोडेर भ्याटहरु जोडेर अनि त्यसपछि चाहिँ बल्ल के भन्छ उनीहरुले आफ्नो प्रॉफिट जोडेर अनि हामीहरुलाई बेचिन्छ.
The Department of Commerce is the regulatory body responsible for ensuring whether consumers are being cheated on price and quality. However, the department has not been able to maintain a clean and regulated market in the capital. In this scenario, the department will need to put in considerable effort to make MRP mandatory across all goods and services nationwide and monitor the situation effectively.
It is time now for international update. Israeli forces have killed at least 34 people on the second day of Eid al-Fitr as Palestinians in Gaza mourn the 15 emergency workers killed by Israel while trying to rescue the wounded on 23rd of March. Thousands of Palestinians are fleeing Rafah in southern Gaza after Israeli forces ordered the evacuation of nearly the entire city and launched deadly attacks on the area. Yemen's Houthis say U.S. forces launched 2 raids on Cameron Island in the Red Sea as U.S. President Donald Trump warned the rebel group to halt attacks on shipping or face real pain. Gaza's health ministry has said at least 50,357 Palestinians are now confirmed dead and 114,400 wounded in Israel's war on Gaza. Gaza's government media office updated its death toll about 2 months ago to more than 61,700, saying that thousands of people missing under the rubble are presumed dead. At least 1,139 people were killed in Israel during the Hamas-led October 7, 2023 attacks, and more than 200 were taken captive. Moving on, the Trump administration has deported more alleged Venezuelan and MS-13 gang members to El Salvador, sending 17 people it claims were foreign criminals. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said deportees included murderers and rapists. El Salvador's President Nayib Bukele stated in a post on X that all deportees were confirmed murderers and high-profile offenders, including 6 child rapists. After taking office, Trump aimed to deport millions of immigrants in the U.S. illegally. He recently used the Alien Enemies Act, typically reserved for wartime, to target alleged Venezuelan gang members. This move was challenged by the American Civil Liberties Union, which argued it violated due process rights. Some family members of deportees claimed they had no gang ties. A federal appeal court upheld a block on using the law for rapid deportations, but the Trump administration is seeking to overturn this decision in the Supreme Court while continuing deportations through other legal means. That is all for the moment. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.